Welcome back to the channel. This is the Action Figure Grader, and this is kind of a follow-up video to yesterday's video on my top 5 overrated vintage Star Wars characters or figures. Today is going to be my top 5 underrated vintage Star Wars figures. So it was a little tougher, I feel like, on the underrated, but I picked ones that I particularly think have maybe flown under the radar for most collectors. And you guys will probably disagree with all of these choices, but that's okay. That's why I'm doing this video. It's just to kind of spark some discussion. So as you're leaving a like for this video, leave me a comment below. You can say I'm crazy. You can pick your most underrated characters. And I want to kind of first go through, just like with the overrated, here are the factors that I personally considered to when I was kind of putting this list together. And you can see my stupid fat face there holding my Mego Incredible Hulk when I was a kid. And so these are the 5 factors. It's not like I weight them equally. If it's a really overpriced figure, then maybe it didn't make the list, and vice versa. So, you know, I kind of used these factors and juggled them and picked and choose what I thought was important as I put this list together. I hope that makes sense. The aesthetics, number 5, is an important factor. Does it look like a cool character? Does it have good playability? Things like that. The aura or reputation. And for the underrated list, they might have no aura or reputation, whereas I think they probably should. Or maybe they have a really good aura or reputation, but maybe the price doesn't reflect that. And so I try to kind of use them in tandem, or have 3 of them affect it versus all of them, things like that. Collectability is another really important factor from my perspective. If it's got lots of different variants and people maybe don't recognize that, that might put them on the underrated list. And just consequently overrated, maybe they don't have a lot of variants available to collect. So collectability is usually the most important factor for me. Price is another big factor, obviously. Price, if it's overpriced or it's really expensive, it's kind of hard to put them on the underrated list. Although I do have one on here that I would argue is probably pretty expensive, but maybe not relative to similar characters or similar action figures. So that kind of plays into how it got on the underrated list. And then rarity also is another one. None of these are really rare. Let's get that out of the way, right? But maybe some of the variants are rare, and people don't recognize those variants as being particularly rare. So I'm going to kind of factor that in along with price and collectability, and then you kind of tie in the aura, reputation, and then the aesthetics and playability of them. So without further ado, you can agree or disagree, but here's my list. The hardest one I had trouble with was number 5, because I was trying to decide between 2 different characters. And I went with Dengar for number 5. Now, admittedly, I'm biased, okay? I love Dengar. I played with this figure as a kid all the time. I don't know why. Maybe because I kind of look like him. But I obviously have a pretty decent-sized Dengar collection. I've got 5 mint-on cards. I've got 4 loose-graded, I think. So, to me, Dengar is one of those characters that I really enjoy. Now, on number 5, I was trying to decide between Dengar and General Madine, believe it or not. I personally love General Madine. I don't know why, but he's got really good collectability because he's got a lot of variants out there. And, you know, the General Madine, just off the top of my head, he's got a Hong Kong painted face, a Hong Kong molded face, a no COO, a Taiwan regular hair, a Taiwan green hair, and the Lily Letty. Those are off just the top of my head. I'm sure I'm missing some. But, so he's got 6 different variants that you can collect for General Madine, and he looks really good for some reason in a loose graded case. I don't know why that is. I just find him to be really good. Obviously, the Tri-Logo makes it very desirable as well. We just saw that Tri-Logo General Madine that sold on Hakes for insane money, like $46,000, something crazy like that. So I was trying to decide between General Madine and Dengar. I went with Dengar because I think that the differences in the variants that are available for him are so unique that it's hard to pass him up. With Dengar, you've got the Hong Kong, you've got also a no COO, which appeared on the Palatoys and Tri-Logo card backs. You have the Spanish PBP purple armor. That's another really cool one with the pale face. You have the Spanish Pock, and there's two different Spanish Pocks that you can get. One with kind of a red backpack as well. So there are some pretty unique variants for Dengar that really change the colors. In addition to underneath those Hong Kong and no COs, things like that, there's lots of different face colors. You have like kind of the normal flesh face color, like I think this one is. There's a very bright orangish kind of yellow tint to his face. So even underneath certain countries of origin, there can be very big differences in how in the appearance of the figure. The other thing about Dengar is, going back to this factors list, he does kind of have a weird aura about him. He's kind of a mysterious character. He only appeared briefly in The Empire Strikes Back on the bridge of the Executor when Darth Vader was trying to track down the Millennium Falcon. So to me, he's got a little bit of a mysterious aura. His reputation is pretty low, though. Let's be fair there. And price-wise, he's really affordable. I mean, you can get all of the different variants. So he's kind of like not viewed as a particularly rare or expensive character, with the exception maybe of the Spanish Pock, the early Spanish figures. Some of those have sold over the last few months, and they went for some pretty big money. Not particularly rare, though. So he's pretty easy to track down for all of the different variants. So I think he's got good collectability. The aesthetics for him, he's just kind of a different character. And we're not talking about mint on card for the purposes of this video, but him mint on card, his price is pretty expensive because, as some of my friends like Blacked Out Ewoks have pointed out, they were peg warmers when they were originally for sale at retail, and they have really big blisters because of that huge backpack that he has. So as a consequence, a lot of those blisters got really dinged up because of the size of the blisters just being on the pegs for so long. So he is kind of expensive mint on card in high grade. So that's something to keep in mind there. So anyway, for my purposes of this video, I went with Dengar. And his backstory was filled out a little bit in the Bounty Hunter trilogy book from, I believe, the 1990s. There was a pretty good trilogy of books about the Bounty Hunters Guild and things like that. And Dengar was basically center of that trilogy, him and Boba Fett, obviously. So you got a little bit of backstory on Dengar to fill out the mysterious aspects of him. But most people haven't read that trilogy. So for me, number 5, Dengar. Number 4. Again, a little bit biased here, but I went with the Cloud Car pilot because I feel like he is a pretty awesome character. And the couple of things that do hold him back, though. First being the figure sculpt. He's got that stupid arm that, it's kind of in an L shape with the arm that makes the playability pretty minimal. It's very tough to play with this character. He also, aesthetically speaking, probably not the most attractive character from the vintage run. That big, ugly orange dome, that really kind of detracts from it. He was not a particularly popular character, except for crazy people like me. I do like him. Price-wise, he is a little bit more on the expensive side because he is a white figure. And it's hard to find him in super clean shape because of the white. And how easy it is to get scuffs and scrapes on that utility belt and on the boots and things like that. So he's kind of a mixed bag as it relates to price. He does also have some rarity factor, right? The Spanish PBP version of the Cloud Car pilot and the Lily Letty version of the Cloud Car pilot are particularly expensive. They're very, very expensive. And so that hurts it from an underrated perspective, right? This is an underrated list. When two of the 3 variants for him, there's the Hong Kong and then the Lily Letty and the Spanish PBP, given that 2 of the 3 of those are very pricey and relatively rare, that really hurts it in terms of what I could call it underrated. It's not really underrated if those 2 variants are expensive. But for my money, I feel like the Cloud Car pilot is maybe a little underrated because it's just one of those characters that's a side character, but really pops. And whether it's loose graded or mint on card, I know that we're not including mint on card on this. So I was a little hesitant to put him on the list, but I do think he's a little bit underrated for what he is. He's a really cool character, and the Bespin scenes are some of the best, in my opinion, from The Empire Strikes Back, and we do have another Bespin character on this list coming up. So that's my opinion on him. He was a little questionable, I admit, but for me, the Cloud Car palette is underrated. Another one that's probably going to be a hot button issue or a hot button selection, this is the Imperial Stormtrooper Hoth. And I do think that he's a little bit underrated relative to the standard Stormtrooper, okay, the first 12 Stormtrooper. To me, you can still find loose, ungraded examples in near mint condition for very, very reasonable prices, which is surprising. He also does have a lot better collectability than people realize. There's the China raised bar version, there's the Hong Kong, there's the no COO, there's the Spanish PBP, there's the YPS German Stormtrooper that came with that alternate G.I. Joe weapon. There's also a Spanish POC. So there's actually also a very rare Lily Letty that was made for a very short time frame, which most people do not know. But there is a Lily Letty out there, and there's probably less than 5 or 6 of those that still exist. But I have seen those in the hands of high-end Lily Letty collectors. So surprisingly, the Imperial Stormtrooper has a lot more variants than people realize, and that's just off the top of my head. He's also relatively a lot less expensive, loose graded in high grade versus an Imperial Stormtrooper, a regular first 12 Stormtrooper. To get an AFA 85 Hoth Stormtrooper doesn't set you back nearly as much money usually as a first 12 Stormtrooper. So in my opinion, he's a little bit underrated. He also has an incredible aura and reputation. The first time I saw the Hoth Stormtrooper in The Empire Strikes Back during the Battle of Hoth when Darth Vader entered and all that, that was an incredible scene. I was like, who are these characters? These are incredible looking, very menacing looking, much more menacing looking than the regular Stormtrooper, in my opinion. It just kind of looks like almost like a ghost. He looks like, you know, from a aura perspective or reputation perspective, he does, in my opinion, instill a lot more fear in the rebels than the regular Stormtroopers. He just looks mean. So I think he's a little bit underrated. What do you guys think on that one? Number 2, and this was a kind of an easy selection. Number 2 and number 1 were actually the easiest selections for me. Number 2 is IG-88. He has a surprisingly large number of variants that you can collect that most people don't know about. You've got the Spanish PBP Smooth COO. You've got the Spanish PBP Scarred COO. You've got the Spanish POC Blood Red Eyes version. There is also a harder to find Spanish POC, either orange or yellow eyes, although a lot of people debate that those are probably just degraded red eyes. But it's still another variant that I would like to have in my collection. You also have the no COO silver. You have the Hong Kong silver with the regular eyes. You have the Hong Kong silver with the hollowed eyes. And then you have the gray body, which has the regular eyes for the Hong Kong. So there are a ton of different variations for IG-88 to collect. He's also a really cool droid with an incredible sculpt. The sculpt on this figure is one of the best, in my opinion, from the Empire Strikes Back line. Hot take on that one. But I mean, look at this sculpt. It's just an incredible sculpt with lots of little details to the droid, much more detailed than most of the droids. You look at R2-D2, you look at the power droid, you look at R5-D4, even the Death Star droid, 21B. Those are all really cool droids, admittedly. But none of the droids, in my opinion, are as cool as IG-88. He's also a much larger character, much taller than some of the standard 3 3/4 inch figures. So to me, IG-88 is very, very much underrated. He's also somewhat mysterious because he is a droid. He only appeared briefly in The Empire Strikes Back. There's not much backstory for him other than looking at the Marvel comic books, some of the modern Marvel comic books. So IG-88 to me is a very underrated droid. But for my money, it's a hero for number 1. Number 1 on my list for most underrated character is Lando Bespin. I think Lando Bespin is extremely underrated, especially when you compare him to some of the other heroes. Lando Calrissian was played with impeccable acting skills by Billy D. Williams. I just thought he was an incredible actor for, especially in The Empire Strikes Back. He was straddling the line between, in that kind of gray area that Han Solo inhabits, of being a good guy but also a scoundrel. And he kind of backstabbed Han Solo in a way to try and save him. And he runs the Bespin Cloud City. He's just a really cool character. He's also got the throwback vinyl cape that was used for Darth Vader and Obi-Wan Kenobi and Princess Leia, First 12. So, and obviously Leia Bespin, things like that. So to me, he's just one of those underrated characters. He also does have really good collectability. He's got a ton of different variants. If you got the Hong Kong nose smile, like you see here, you've got the Hong Kong with the white smile, white teeth. You have the no COO Palatoy version. You've got the Spanish PBP version. You've got the Lily Letty. You also have two different Spanish pox that exist, the brown neck and the black neck. That, again, that's off the top of my head. I may be missing some variants, but that shows you that you can collect a bunch of different Lando Calrissian Bespin versions. And I think, given how inexpensive he is for most of those variants, he's not treated with nearly the same respect as some of the other heroes, like Han Solo and Princess Leia and Luke. To me, he's a very important character in the Star Wars universe from the original trilogy and is greatly underrated. Let me know what you think about this list in the comments. Thanks as always for watching, and I'll be back soon.